And we always hate it when the obituaries are the first thing on the show, but man, it happened just this morning as we were getting ready to record. And Tim, you are just fresh back from St. Louis. So I'm so sorry that that's the news you came back to, but we have lost Ray Liotta.
Yeah, man, just, and you know, we say this out of nowhere. They're all out of nowhere. I mean, nobody was sitting around yesterday saying, hey, you know who's going to die tomorrow? So they're all out of nowhere, but some of them has this sort of sense of being out of nowhere. And so that was one. This is one. I sort of really, what? You know, Ray.
67. Only 67.
Only 67. It's not that much older than me. I'll be 61 in a couple of weeks. And so it bugs me for that reason alone. Yeah. Plus, it's Ray Liotta. And you and I and Ray, our good friend Ray and Mark, and Mark of the show here, chit-chatted in some emails about this. Ray brought up something interesting. Why Martin only went to that well once. For good.
I mean, Scorsese uses people repeatedly, but he didn't use Liotta more than Goodfellas. That was it. That was their one and only foray together, which is still arguably the definitive signature role of his career.
Yeah, and in film in the genre. And look, I did the junket for Something Wild 10,000 years ago, 1990 actually. I think it was.
That basically launched him.
That launched him. Melanie Griffiths within that film. Wonderful film. Who else was it?
Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme directed.
And that was a young Ray Liotta. Great looking Ray Liotta when he was still doing sex symbol sort of stuff. Menacing sex symbol, but sex symbol. And over the years, he sort of morphed into a number of different kinds of characters but never really lost it. He was always Ray Liotta. Never stopped working when he passed away. I forget where they were, but basically went to sleep and didn't wake up. He's got a whole lot of stuff in the can. Technically speaking, three films filming, Cocaine Bear in post-production and a few other things. So yeah, man, wow. Ray Liotta.
It's really sad. I was on Film Week this week too, so we talked about it as well. And I look at a lot of his other roles as being sort of indicative of his range too. No Escape, for example. Martin Campbell directed that. That got Martin Campbell his James Bond roles. But that movie works because of Ray Liotta. And Ray Liotta, not an action star, but he is one in that movie. Kind of for those who haven't seen it, it's kind of Ernie Hudson also really great in that movie. It's kind of an Escape from New York type deal. Yeah. It's an Australian-made film with Ray Liotta and Ernie Hudson in it, and he's a military guy who for reasons that you find out later on, he's an ex-Marine. He's been dropped onto this prison island with all these hostile prisoners, and he's got to make his escape off. Or, again, Escape from New York. But he nails that movie, and I think Martin Campbell's career directing James Bond movies, you got to give Ray Liotta some props too, because he made Martin Campbell look good with that performance. Also,
the very next year, Karina,
beautiful.
The
movie.
very next film is Karina playing that father. Whoopi Goldberg and him and that little girl Tina Marjorie, and he played that sort of wonderful father. And I got to tell you, even looking at the poster of that film, it's Ray and Whoopi and the little girl, and they're just laughing, smiling. Looking at the poster of that film makes me happy. I love that movie, but it was a completely different character that he brought playing that sort of loving father.
And these are smaller parts. These are not the ones he's known for, but they show his range. They show his sensitivity. He was also not above making fun of himself. I think my favorite Ray Liotta performances are the 2 episodes that he did of Just Shoot Me, in which he plays himself. Now for those who remember Just Shoot Me, right? David Spade, and that takes place in the publishing world in New York. Just a great silly sitcom.
So good.
Launched a lot of people. But Ray Liotta showed up in a couple episodes of that thing where he is absolutely smitten by Laura San Giacomo. He is so smitten by her that he promises he will give up his career for her. It is hilarious, and he is so funny, and he is so sincere, and he has that hang dog look, that puppy dog, those puppy dog eyes, and it's a great little bit. He's making fun of his own persona straight up on a sitcom. Takes a really confident actor to be okay with doing that.
Oh yeah, I hope that we remember as we continue memorializing him just how great a range he had. He was funny, and he was not just a movie star, although he was a movie star and led movies. He was a great second lead in movies, TV shows. He was in Hannibal, the sequel. The Silence of the Lambs, and he has that whole great scene right at the end where the thing with the brain and everything.
Anthony Hopkins is eating his brain,
and it's just great. And he was down for it, sort of all the way through. Completely coincidentally, earlier today, it was running on one of the local broadcast television networks, movie networks, Goodfellas. And great in Goodfellas. But one of the things that's really fantastic about Goodfellas and him in Goodfellas is his voiceover. That voiceover in Goodfellas. Yeah. Generally speaking, not a fan of the voiceover. You
gotta have the right texture to your voice.
But he somehow Martin and him, but his whole narration of what's going on, and he just and he does it with that little smile in his voice all the way through, and it's just really, really fantastic. So he could do it all, and there it is.
Such a sad loss. Such a sad loss. Well, and then we should talk a little bit about Top Gun, which opens this week. And, look, I saw it. I loved it. It's weird because everything I love about it is what I hated about the first one, but that was decades ago. And I was a snotty usher at the theater where Top Gun opened, and I had a real sense of superiority. Oh, everyone's liking this dumb Tom Cruise movie. It's so stupid. And here I am decades later. I'm looking at Tom Cruise, and I'm looking at Tom. I'm thinking, man, he is holding it down for all of us who are close to that age or over that age. Thank you, Tom. And I'm watching the film, and I'm getting weepy eyed when all the beefcake, the sweaty bodies on the beach start playing football as opposed to volleyball. And I'm like, oh, it's just like the volleyball scene that I hated the first time, but I love it now for some strange heterosexual reason I don't understand. So nostalgia is a weird thing, man. It just it's strange, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, they had to put a pause on it, through COVID.
That's partly what it is, right? It's that we see this film not just as a film, but it's something that is bringing us out of COVID. It's bringing us back to movie theaters. It's like it's taken on mythical stature as the movie that is pulling us out of COVID.
And look, the 86 film, Tony Scott, you in the ensuing years, we lost Tony, of course. But for Tony, you got a whole lot of returning. Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer's had a tough run in the last 40 odd years, dealt with some throat cancer and things like that. But Val, manages to get himself back in good enough shape to get back in this movie, in good enough stead to get back in this movie. He's an admiral. He's still the Iceman. So, you gotta love that. And, so I appreciate all of that. And then you got all the new young boys, all the new young, Miles Teller, whose career is really just wow. From that drumming movie to now, he's running around in that Coppola movie, that movie about the Godfather, I should say.
And we should just point out that Miles has been hitting the gym. Yeah. If you go back not too long, Miles is just a skinny kid.
Yeah.
And man, somehow he put on like 40 pounds of just raw muscle. Dude's got abs and pecs and delts and the whole thing. So whoever did the training in this, they turned Miles Teller into a beefcake, and that's saying something.
Yeah, well, I imagine Tom hooked him up with all the best people because Tom, Tom is my generation. Tom and I are both 60. So Tom is one of the cats. And I say this all the time, and it might be a bit of hyperbole, but he is literally, in my opinion, the last movie star.
Amen, brother. He is.
He's the last one for whom his name is the thing for which we are going to the movie for.
But I'm going to be hopeful here, and if anybody hasn't seen the trailer for Mission Impossible, the next Mission Impossible, you got to, because like Top Gun is just the warm up. I mean, that trailer is through the roof. That is phenomenal. I just can't even believe what he's doing in that movie. Here's the thing. Yes, he's the last movie star, but I'm also going to say he is also the first movie star because we're going to get him back. I think Tom Cruise at this point in time is now a beacon for what this business has to do going forward. We need to start, now that people are starting to get Marvel fatigue and franchise fatigue and brand fatigue, it's time to kind of start cultivating those movie stars again, those celebrity filmmakers, those celebrity screenwriters. When we used to know names like Spielberg, like Joe Esterhaas, like Shane Black, Tom Cruise, and all the other stars. I mean, yeah, we've got the George Clooney's and the Brad Pitts, and there are other stars, but like you said, the movie star who opens the movie and we go to see the movie for them. Tom Cruise is showing us the way, and it's time to start cultivating some more of those again. We need some.
Well, is that thing? Hey, are you going to? The question would be: are you going to go see the new Tom Cruise movie? 82, 80 this, 80 that, or whatever. That's what you're going to go. For that, there was a moment. Are you going to see that new Tom Hanks movie? You're going to go see that new movie? There's a lot of them.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts. Going to see the Julia Roberts movie. What's it about? Don't know. Julia Roberts is in it. What the hell does it make what it's about? But times come and changed and streaming and the stuff we always talk about.
Yeah.
And so all kinds of perfectly good reasons for why that changed. Tom is still at the top of that list, I think. Anyway, looking forward. I haven't seen it yet. I'll go get a hold of it tomorrow.
It's a whole lot of fun. And look, I mean, the enemy nation in it is unnamed. They very deliberately don't show you anyone's faces, so you can't make any racial or ethnic identification to any part of the world. You don't know if it is. It's sort of kind of like Chirusharan. That sort of nation that they're fighting. It's Chirusharan. Something like that, maybe.
Well, in that first movie, of course, they had to come up with a sort of whole cloth sort of reason for there to be because it was Cold War, so they came up with a real sort of whole cloth thing in that first movie to put the fighters in jeopardy, real battle jeopardy, as they were these young trainers. Whatever, they say I had already done in 1986. I had already done my 6 years in military service in the Air Force, but they say that movie drove a whole lot of young people, young men to recruitment, and then some folks are anticipating perhaps a similar sort of situation this time around. And I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I believed that then. To be honest with you, having spent 6 years in the Air Force, I'm thinking this is great, but I don't think so. But whatever. It's a cool thing. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's launch into Blu-ray and DVD now. We've got a lot of stuff. We have not covered foreign in a while, so I want to blow through some foreign stuff right off the top here. We have accumulated. We're still dealing with a lot of COVID backlog here, and there are some supply chain issues related to DVDs and Blu-rays too. We should point out fewer places pressing them these days, but I want to catch you up on a few things. Some really amazing foreign titles have come out over the past few months, and a whole bunch. I'm going to start off right now with the F.W. Murnau stuff from Kino Classics. There's a lot of this. So just so everybody understands, this is not all necessarily straight up foreign, but it kind of is. It's from the F.W. Murnau library, the catalog, where they are not just restoring Murnau's titles, but they're restoring things that are sort of part of the German library and part of the expressionist tradition. So, and a lot of this is done in collaboration with the British Film Institute as well. So first off, from the Murnau library, they have a Douglas Sirk collection. So it's the Murnau library, the Douglas Sirk collection. It's a double feature, To New Shores and Habanera. Some beautiful performances in here, especially Zara Leander, the wonderful Swedish actress that is not well enough known here. Kind of it has a real Hollywood quality to her. So some good stuff in that one. Then we also have Immense and The Great Sacrifice. This is a double feature with Christina Soderbaum. And these are kind of, again, nice German melodramatic stuff from 1943, 1944. Has as we may know from history, this is not the best period in German history, so it's a little bit propagandistic, you could say. They are clearly kind of peddling a particular image, a particular kind of story, but nonetheless, they have historical value, and I think that it's worth watching for Soderbaum. She is a strong screen presence. FP1 doesn't answer. This is from 1932, and then it also has Secrets of FP1, which is the English language version of it, which is substantially shorter, and that was released about a year later. This is an interesting, weird kind of science fiction effort that is a little bit. It's got like a harbinger of what's going to happen in Germany, because the Nazis had not quite fully taken over, but you can feel kind of a sense of scientific superiority in this thing. It's all about creating this giant airborne airport, this like airport in the air, which can be like if you're moving between continents. And it sort of suggests like the Superman concept that is going to become very much a part of Nazi ideology. It's not an ideological film, but it's interesting in that historical context. Conrad Veidt is particularly awesome in this. He originally was the star of The Man Who Laughs, which was the inspiration for the Joker, especially in Matt Reeves' new film, which we're going to be talking about later when I get back into name-dropping mode. We also have Port of Freedom by Helmut Kautner. This is a beautiful restoration of this movie starring Hans Albers. It's again a little bit there's going to be some degree of controversy related to this, just given its historical posture, where it sits vis-a-vis the Nazis and World War II and all of that stuff. But if you look at it just as a straight nice melodrama, that takes place in Hamburg and depicts the sort of pre-war circumstances in Hamburg. If you can get, kind of put any shadows of forthcoming Nazi ideology away, it's got some good edges to it. That being said, you can also read it through what was then an increasingly strict censorship regime and see exactly what they're allowing to be said and what they're not allowing to be said. This is a hoot. I don't know if it's supposed to be a hoot, but it's a hoot. It stars a guy named Louis Trenker, and it is called The Kaiser of California. Now, my first thought was, I didn't know they made a movie about Mark. But what this actually is, this is a bizarre German Western, and there were a lot of these. They made them after the war too. In East Germany, they made a lot of weird East German Westerns. This was made in 1936. And it's weird watching a Nazi Western in German. It really is. It's just totally bizarre. Can't say that it's a very, very good movie, but it's weird. And it's kind of, it's well done and it's freakish. And it's this weird, bizarre excerpt from history. It's a very strange movie. So The Kaiser of California, if you want to get a curious dose of that stuff. And then
also makes sense, though. I mean, it's a lot of those people at that time, a lot of Swiss and German citizens had immigrated to the United States.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, but it's strange. Cowboys aren't supposed to speak German. It just shouldn't be happening. Shouldn't be happening. And then from BFI, Man with a Movie Camera, the Ziga Vertov legendary silent film, which we all saw in film school. They still show in film schools. Nice new Blu-ray of it with an audio commentary by Adrian Martin. Very, very cool. And a little background on Ziga Vertov with Ian Christie. Ziga Vertov, the name, not his real name. Ziga Vertov means spinning top. And so that's a pseudonym. But
it was Kaufman, I think. Something Kaufman. I can't remember.
Something like that, yeah. There's, this cool new score by Michael Nyman is absolutely perfect. The movie is just a trip. It's just a total psychedelic avant-garde trip. It makes no sense. There's some fun stuff in it where you're editing the film and then the film starts again. I mean, there's some very cool and aggressive stuff that was very unusual during the silent era. And this is 1929, so it's right there on the cusp.
Some people would say that's the introduction of a sort of cinema verite
Yeah, true.
documentary film style. That's
But for your silent library, that's a good one to have. Tous les matins du monde, I want to talk about for just a second. The Gérard Depardieu movie that also starred his late son as his younger self. Alain Corneau directed this. This was, this was kind of all the rage in 1991, and I went. It was still, I think I was there in 91, and I was there again in 92 for Cannes. But here's what I remember just being amazing about this movie. This was a phenomenon in France at the time. Now, the story is about an instrument that doesn't exist anymore. Depardieu plays a historical, an actual factual figure who mastered this particular string instrument, which is sort of cello-like, but it doesn't really exist anymore. It's an obsolete instrument. And the soundtrack is all of this Baroque, very, very particular kind of classical music, which I wouldn't necessarily run out and buy at a record store or a CD store. It'd be like, okay, if I hear it on the radio and I kind of lie down, it'd be nice to relax to. Might be nice if it was in a concert, but am I going to run out and buy an entire album of this stuff? You know who did? Millions of French people. This was a hit album. This thing went like platinum in France. Biggest, crazy, right? So, Tous les matins du monde, meaning all the mornings of the world, is a lovely film, and
that was a couple of years after Green Card. It's sort of like big American moment with Andy McGee. I did the junket for Green Card. That's the only time I ever met Gerard.
I did that. I did Green Card.
Did you on that junket too?
I did that junket too. Yeah.
Yeah. It was good,
oh no! I take it back. I didn't do the Green Card junket. I did the Columbus junket.
Oh yeah.
That's what I did. Yeah, I did the with Ridley Scott. That was the one that I did. And then we also have Titane, which won the Palme d'Or last year for Julia Ducournau, the second Palme d'Or winner at the Cannes Film Festival ever to go to a woman after Jane Campion for The Piano. This has a Q&A on it with Ducournau and Vincent Linden and Agathe Roussel, the actors in it. I don't really know what to make of this movie. I'll be honest. This is sort of like a female take on Cronenberg. That is like she wants to one up Cronenberg. She wants to out Cronenberg, and it winds up being very cyberpunky, body modification, gender bending weirdness at a certain point that I didn't really understand. I respect the craft of it, but I feel like it's a little bit too much shock factor for me. What are those movies, the Japanese films that this is more like the Hammer movies? What are those called? The something Hammer. Anyway, Tim, your thoughts on Titane?
Well, yeah, it was one that we were talking about. So, who was that movie, that Crash from several stuff? Not the one with Elias Cojotes and Elias Cojotes and all that.
That crash. The Cronenberg crash.
The Cronenberg crash. That holds a lot of that sort of thing going. What I thought of this is Linden is giving the performance of a lifetime. He really throws himself into this with all these sort of young actors into the sort of thing, but he sort of physically sort of like gets into it all, it's sort of extraordinary in that way. There was a time when these sort of movies were all the rage, or a little less ragey for me now. Mostly now they're just.
We also have a couple of films on DVD, not Blu-ray, from Icarus, which are by Marc Allegret, wonderful filmmaker who doesn't get enough credit here. Lady Chatterley's Lover, starring Danielle Darrieux, and Giulietta, starring Jean Marais and Jeanne Moreau. Both of these really, really beautifully made movies. Both of them made in the 1950s. Giulietta was made in 1953. Lady Chatterley's Lover, made in 1955, fairly tame by the standards of the day. They were a little bit risque. I mean, for European films were already more risque than American films. Yeah. But looking at them through a lens of today, you're like, it's not really a big deal. Lady Chatterley's Lover, very, very tame by what audiences might even expect now. But yeah, I think they're both lovely. They're both really well done, beautifully shot. I wish they were on Blu-ray. I think Mark Allegre is a filmmaker really well worth rediscovering,
Yeah.
and has a great eye and a wonderful sense of pacing. But those are two beautiful DVDs to pick up. Playground by Laura Wandel. This was in certain regard at the Cannes Film Festival last year. It was most recently Belgium's submission for the Academy Awards. It did not get accepted, which is too bad because it's really quite compelling. It has a little bit of a Dardenne Brothers vibe to it. Interesting look at childhood. It's about this brother and sister, this little girl, tries to protect her brother from being humiliated and bullied, and it really immerses you in, gosh, that horrible moment of childhood where those incidents are just so much bigger than they really should be. And it's got a beautiful short film on it called Foreign Bodies, also directed by Laura Wandel. And I think Laura Wandel is a filmmaker to really keep your eye on. I think there's going to be some great stuff coming out from her very soon.
Yeah.
But beautiful look at childhood. European filmmakers tend to have a much more pastoral look at childhood than others. Let's talk about the Oscar nominated Almodovar film Parallel Mothers, which I think should have won Best Actress for Penelope Cruz. She didn't get it. I thought she would.
It was a tough category.
Man, it was a tough category. Also nominated for Best Original Score, but what a fascinating movie. Really interesting film. Interesting take on motherhood. These two women whose connection in life and in motherhood I won't divulge, because that's kind of almost a thrillery trajectory here. But that's what I want to kind of mention is I'm starting to realize that Almodovar tells dramas that are structured like thrillers.
Well, certainly, if you think of the skin I live in, certainly, and even going way back, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, and certainly, so yeah, I think I agree with that. And even Women on the Verge, there's a tensity in them because there's always the threat of something perfectly insane sort of happening. Talk to her. And of course, women, Almodovar, women being, he has a pipeline. I mean, he's a gay man raised by a single mother, but he has a pipeline, and maybe it's just a matter of listening. Maybe it's just because he listens into the inner psychology of women, certain kinds of women, anyway. And I think that that's interesting. And his movies are always amazing.
And then we have a haunted plane movie, Row 19, Evil at 30,000 Feet. This is a Russian genre film. Not going to judge the filmmaker, despite everything that's happening with Russia and Ukraine. This is Welgo has seen fit to release this, so I'm going to trust them that we are not somehow helping finance the slaughter of Ukrainians with this. But this is a Russian genre film. Takes place in a plane. Basically, people start dying, and there's a physician on the plane who starts to figure out that it has something to do with her past, and does it all quite hang together? Not really. It's a resume piece. The director clearly wants to work in Hollywood, so that's what it's going for, and it will probably happen.
Yeah. Special effects are practical and mostly practical and good.
Yeah. DVD film also was kind of a big deal at a number of festivals. Is Bloody Oranges. This is a little bit too quirky for me. It's French language. I believe it is French. It might be Belge, possibly. Not that familiar with anybody in it, but it's a very black comedy, almost too black for me. With that sort of looks at class. It's like a comedy of manners done with the darkest of instincts. And these characters are all not very sympathetic. They come from all walks of life, and their interactions feel a little bit contrived to me. But it's stylishly made, and it certainly makes its point with a fist. And a few lingering ones here. We got a genre noir film, kind of a minor genre noir film. from 1925, silent era picture that's really significant. More just if you want to be a completist. This is Whirlpool of Fate. Again, it's the first thing that he ever did. It's rough. He's going for something that doesn't completely quite work. He's young at the time. It was shot on the estate of Paul Cézanne, because obviously his dad and Cézanne, being great painters of the Impressionist era, he could go to Cézanne's house and shoot a movie. So it's a little bit of a student film type thing going on, an overlong student film, but it's got little flair in it, and it's got some flashes of genius. So for completists only,
it's pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty, what you would expect from the son of a painter.
Yeah.
And then two kind of interesting, two great male performers of the era in a couple of interesting films: Lino Ventura in Illustrious Corpses, and Jacques Dufilio in Jean-Louis Trintignant's A Full Day's Work. Jean-Louis Trintignant, in this case, directing the film. And, these are both from the 1970s. European films weren't that great in the 70s. They have kind of a dated look and a dated style, but there's a thing going on here. The restoration on A Full Day's Work is very nice. They did an original camera negative restoration in 4K. It's a Blu-ray, so you're not getting the full benefit of the 4K, but it's nice.
Von Sydow shows up for a wee little moment in Illustrious Corpses. Max von Sydow.
Oh yeah, he does. He has a little part in that. Yeah. So I mean, these are kind of typical European genre films from that particular period. I think if I had A Full Day's Work has some comedic qualities to it. It's kind of like a crime comedy of sorts, and I like it. I enjoy it, but again, I wouldn't run out and grab this with the drop of a hat. Just only if this is your vibe, if you like this particular style and genre films. And very, very last one here is A Taste of Blood, which is just a straight up silly, gory genre movie that, Spanish genre movie. It's dubbed in English. You can watch it in the original Spanish track. I prefer to watch it dubbed in English because
this is Herschel. This is
no, it's not. This is from a director named A.K. Tolstoy.
Oh, okay.
And frankly, I prefer to watch this English dubbed as opposed to the original Spanish, because the original Spanish is too legit.
Okay.
When you watch it dubbed in English, it's cheesier, and then all the makeup effects and all the gore and all the nonsense. It's a vampire. It's a silly, low-budget vampire thing. But when you watch it English dubbed, it just feels like it was made maybe in 1968. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes complete sense.
All right.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's move on to some other things. We've got 4K.
Let's go to 4K.
Let's do the 4K. All right.
Talk about the film of the moment, the Batman.
The Batman.
Yes. Which is interesting. Out on 4K. Matt, look, to the extent that this genre, this film, could be revived yet again. I suppose that he did a fairly interesting sort of conception of the world to place the Batman in. A couple of things that he did that I deeply appreciate is he didn't literally give us the very same Batman story, Martha getting, and everybody in the alley and all that kind of stuff. We kind of start this movie, we're already there. And somehow he manages to make it feel like a mid-70s, Serpico-y, I don't know, whatever, saw the movie, while at the same time being somewhat futuristic. Really love Zoe in it. Could have used a good deal more of Zoe Kravitz in it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And I don't know, didn't hate it as I really anticipated doing. Really anticipating deeply, deeply hating that movie. It's also way too long. And Jeffrey Wright, I think gave really a fantastic performance in the film.
Great performance as Commissioner Gordon.
Right behind a great performance in that Bond movie. Did he just, and actually a really great performance in that in that little movie. That the little movie that he did last year.
Oh,
What's his name? Yeah, you know the
yeah,
one. Yeah, where he
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
played
yeah.
James Baldwin. He getting better and better and better. He is. But all in all, I don't hate it. And I expected to hate it, and I thought it actually had some things that there were several things that go well in the Batman.
I like the film a lot. I am obviously biased because I grew up with Matt and have known him since high school, and starred in two of his student films. As I will continue to drop names. Mark used to mock me for dropping all the names. No, here's the thing. I'm gonna read something. I have pulled out my phone. I'm into my text thread, and when Matt was announced as a director of this thing, however many years ago it was, I texted him the following. So help me, you had better give Adam West a cameo.
Oh, Adam was still with us.
He did not. He did not reply to that text. I mean, why would he? But anyway, I'm still very proud of actually making that joke because I thought it was funny. I'm sure he rolled hysterical. His eyes. Anyway. So here's what I appreciate about what he did in the film. He's almost up against a wall in that the whole Batman thing has been done to death, and it's been done by all these different directors with so many different actors that you're now kind of between a rock and a hard place. And the rock is you have to come up with something original. The hard place is there's all of this fan service that you have to include. You got to have the Batmobile. You got to have the utility belt. You got to have the Batcave. You've got to have Alfred. You've got to have recognizable villains that have probably been done before as well. So there's all of this fan service that has to be there. How do you do something original and yet different from the other movies that have all been done, while at the same time being the same? It's really it's a gnarly trick. And I thought he pulled it off. I thought he really went in this dark detective noir direction. He found a new way of kind of telling the story. The Riddler is terrifying in this thing. I mean, that opening murder sequence really, really sets you off. You just go, "Whoa, this is somebody else's Batman. This is not the same thing." So I think it's very, very sharp, and I'm looking forward to the next one because there is going to be a next one.
Oh yeah! Shout out to Colin Farrell. Also, love Zoe, but love Colin Farrell. Unrecognizable, which is what you want to be, in a situation like that. And frankly, a lot of good work done by a whole lot of folks in that film. Like you said, Paul Dano's Riddler. I mentioned Jeffrey Wright, Andy Serkis running around the movie as Alfred. So a lot of good stuff. And the Batman. What's on that disc? What do they give us?
Matt does a great commentary, really interesting commentary. Goes into all the details. He doesn't hold anything back. It's really, really nice. And there are tons of other deleted scenes, making of documentary on here that is just so in depth. It's mind boggling. And they break down the car chase too, which is very interesting. And that car chase is, a beautiful car chase. It's very interesting to see it broken down versus how, for example, Christopher Nolan did a very different take on the car chase with his Batmobile. I mean, there's just a ton of great stuff on here, on Zoe and Catwoman and all that stuff. It's terrific. It's really great. And 4K, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Movies Anywhere code, you get this thing popped up. I know you can watch it on HBO Max, but why would you if you can get the 4K on disc? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Can we jump to the Candyman?
That's just what I was pulling out. Let's do Candyman on 4K. Thank you, Shout Factory and Scream Factory. Tons of extras on this thing. Holy cow, they went to town. Shout Factory just blew the doors off of this. Everything and then some that you have ever wanted to have. They went to the original negative. They did a new 4K master of it. Bernard Rose and his DP Anthony Richmond oversaw everything. There's a commentary with Bernard Rose, Clive Barker, and the actors, including Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd and Casey Lemons. I mean, there's another audio commentary with Stephen Jones and Kim Newman, who are who take a film critic, a more critical approach to it. I mean, there are featurettes through the roof here. Interviews, new interviews, old interviews, stuff on the writing of it, stuff on Clive Barker. It's just hours and hours and hours. It's just an enormous amount of stuff for Candyman.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so interesting. Tim, your thoughts on this film when it was first released?
Well, we do this every show. I just realized it's ridiculous. But I did the Candyman junket way back in 1992. Which was great because I had started becoming a little bit friends with Tony Todd, whom I still know, because I did the junket for, the remake of Night of the Living Dead, which Tony Todd starred in. And then this film, Bernard Rose, a whole bunch of interesting stories about what Bernard Rose did to that Clive Barker novel, The Forbidden, to make that Candyman movie. 90% of what we think about, what you say into the mirror 5 times and all that, that's Bernard Rose. That's not the Clive Barker. One of the things I like about this Candyman is that it's not a remake. It's a continuation of the story. And that they bring characters over, particularly Vanessa Williams' character from the first movie. Vanessa was in the first movie way back in 1992, and she's in this movie. And we're sort of working this story in that Jordan Peele sort of urban, socially aware horror construct that he does, where he makes these horror movies, and they're horror movies. But there are horror movies that are aware that we exist in a world that has all kinds of social constructs, and some of them do with race and socioeconomic status. And he sets this one in the Chicago projects and all of that. The first one was set down in New Orleans, and Nia DaCosta, and they do some really interesting stuff in this movie. It's funny too. That's the other thing I like about this Candyman. It has a sense of humor, while at the same time working the hell out of that hard beat. Did they give us anything interesting on it?
Just, I mean, all this stuff, tons and tons and tons of stuff. The interviews, commentaries. It's so much. I mean, I got through like a fraction of it, just a bare fraction of it. But you do get both unrated and director's cuts, which I thought was pretty cool. Double Indemnity is out from Criterion in a 4K.
Wow.
And man, is that beautiful. This is just, I felt like my television was turning to nitrate while I was watching it. The silvers in this are so silvery. The blacks are dark. This is noir to the nth degree. I'm not even sure it was supposed to ever look this good, but Criterion has, they've just totally batted this thing well out of the park. Tons of special features on here, and this is nice too because this hasn't been out on Blu-ray in a long time, so this is a real upgrade for everybody who's been living with the previous Universal release, which is not great. Based on the book by James M. Cain. So much good stuff on here. There's a new interview with film scholar Noah Eisenberg, who edited Billy Wilder on assignment and knows everything there is to know about this thing. There's a new conversation between Eddie Muller and Imogen Sarah Smith, film historians, really getting into the nitty gritty of this thing. It's just really great. And it includes the original audio commentary by our late colleague, Richard Schickel, who just grumbles and gives you all kinds of great details. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Couple of radio adaptations. I mean, it's the original great noir, Fred McMurray, and he's come on. How do you, Barbara Stanwyck?
The Cain novel, Billy and a little bit of Raymond Chandler working on the screenplay. It's going to crackle. It's going to crackle.
I still quote, the person I quote the most? Robinson. I quote him the most because I always talk about my little man. My little man. I got my little man. My little man's talking to me. I've got a little man. We all have a little man. Some of us might have a little woman, but whoever it is, it's talking to you.
Yeah, the double entendre lives inside this movie. So that's,
does it ever?
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop 2 is on 4K.
One of the few sequels that was just about as funny, in many, many ways as the original. I loved Beverly Hills Cop 2. Love Beverly Hills Cop, but love this movie.
I think Tony Scott, I've gone back and forth. Which one do I like more? Because what Martin Brest did with the first film was very funny, and it was fresh and it was original. But what Tony Scott did with Beverly Hills Cop 2 was stylish and sexy and still very funny. And I
Yeah.
think if push comes to shove, I think I may like Beverly Hills Cop 2 better. I think it ages better for me.
It moves a little bit faster. Judd Reinhold and John Ashton a little bit more on the ball. They're not antagonists to Axel in Beverly Hills Cops 2.
Right.
They're allies to Axel. In that, and even Ronnie Cox is an ally. And plus, you got big giant Bridget Nielsen in that movie. She was still like this gigantic, this gigantic. So I don't know. Yeah, there's something about this movie that I actually liked it more.
And what you really get out of the 4K here is primarily in the audio department. I mean, yeah, it looks great and it's splashy, and 4K really helps with a lot of motion artifacts. But boy, that uncompressed audio, that's just through the roof here. It's crank up those speakers, get the second subwoofer moving, and you will not believe what this thing does. The neighbors will complain. Boy, will they ever complain.
Can we do 12 Monkeys?
Oh yeah. We got a couple from 2-4
back in '95. This was really the thing in '95. This film, as news regarding Bruce Willis has sort of set in, and we've all sort of let that come to us. This was Bruce Willis just really in that run of films. That middle part of his career after the guy from all the Die Hard movies, right? But when he was doing these quiet sort of really acting pieces, Unbreakable, and the guy in the I See Dead People movie, M. Night's movie, and all that kind. And this was one of them. And it was just a hell of a thing, this movie. And it's still completely watchable today. I think they did a TV series or something, based on the whole thing. And it's one of these movies because, Terry would sometimes really jack movies straight to hell. He would and he almost jacked this movie up. And his producers saved him on this film.
Yep.
And it's one of those circumstances where I've always said really great filmmakers need someone around them who will say no.
So
you're wrong.
This is what I wanted to make mention of this, because you told me originally to watch the documentary, The Hamster Factor, which is completely titled The Hamster Factor and Other Tales of 12 Monkeys. And it's a feature-length documentary by Keith Fulton and Louis Pepe, who also did Lost in La Mancha, which was supposed to be another Terry Gilliam making of featurette thing, but the movie wound up going so far off the rails that they released it as its standalone feature. Which, of course, as I've mentioned on this before, is very connected to our house, because my wife was the person who ran the original due diligence on the La Mancha project, tossed the script in my lap after she read it and said, can't be done. It's under budgeted by half. And, of course, she wound up her advice was discounted. The movie was made. Everything that she predicted would go wrong did go wrong. And poor Fred shows up in the documentary. But in any case, the original of those was The Hamster Factor. And you're the one who said to me, dude, you got to watch The Hamster Factor, because in this movie, Charles Roven saves the film from Terry Gilliam twice.
Yep.
There are two key moments where he says, I think we ought to do that. And Terry says, no. He goes, no, you're going to do that. And he calls rank. He pulls rank on him. And he was right in both cases.
Yeah. Just save Terry's ass. And if Terry would have had somebody like that on a few films, frankly, and you look, we say things, to my mind, we could say that about a few directors. Some Coppola. Tarantino. I'm whispering. I don't know why I'm whispering. but there are others who don't need it. They know what they're doing. Scorsese never needed anybody.
No.
So I don't know what that is. It's just a thing that happens. But I love this movie. I still love this movie.
It's great, based on La Jetée by Chris Marker. I mean, a French filmmaker made a movie, a little low budget movie that's all still images and narration, and Terry turned it into this thing thanks to significantly David Peoples and Janet Peoples. Great screenplay. Roger Pratt, shoots the daylights out of this thing as well. It's just a lot of talented people bringing the talent to bear, and it is great. And it is on 4K from Arrow, loaded with extras. Arrow's other 4K, I have some mixed feelings about. Let's talk about this for a second. This is Wild Things.
Mm.
So, I mean,
This was kind of I don't want to say scandalous, but in '98 when this movie came out, it was the thing that people were talking about because it's
yes. Well,
it
John
was
McNaughton had a moment because he had done Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and he was kind of this unusual studio director at the time. His career has not exactly panned out because he's a little bit hard to peg, and that's sad. But yeah, but this really kind of gnarly quasi. Well, it isn't even quasi. It's like an erotic thriller. It's just a straight up erotic thriller, and I don't know that the plot really falls together very well. It's very clever. It's almost too clever by half in some of its plot twists, and you roll your eyes. You go, that would never happen. That is no way. I'm not buying it. But at the same time, it's a great, beautiful quartet of people: Kevin Bacon and Neve Campbell, Matt Dillon, Denise Richards, and Kevin Bacon has enough confidence to bear his semi-erect self coming out of the shower at the end of this thing.
yeah.
At the same time, I just think it's silly.
It's sexy, and it's meant to be. And it lived in that period with films like, what was the one that Sharon Stone did? Basic Instinct.
Yeah,
Sharon did 3 or 4 of them. Sliver.
Yeah.
She did, Madonna did one. And evidence, something about Body of Evidence or something like that. And it was the whole moment with these movies. And this was, the sort of back end of that period of these sort of movies that were meant to be, walking on the edge of things. And, this one's fun. And, Bill Murray has a fun moment in this movie. It's okay.
Yeah, I guess. A lot of extras. It comes with a booklet. It's a nice package. It's 4K. It's from Arrow, and it's loaded with extras. Tons and tons of extras. Looks beautiful. So take Tim's advice, not mine. And then we also have got a few more on the 4K front here. Let me do the new one, and then we can save these others for after. So Mark Wahlberg and Chiwetel Ejiofor, we're also going to hopefully get to in Kinky Boots later. So Mark Wahlberg and Chewie, as they call him, made a movie called Infinite, which I had not heard of. It is now out on 4K. Totally. Did this wind up in theaters? Paramount's releasing this. What's the deal with this? Do you know?
I saw it on one of the streaming services, which is whichever one that it ended up. Because it was kind of smack dab in the middle of the whole. What are we going to do? Are we going to release it in theaters? Are we going to do this? Right, kind of smack dab in the middle of that. And I guess they pulled the trigger. It's Antoine Fuqua. Big movie, past life things, swords and guns, depending on where and when we are in the movie. Great production value, not a remotely memorable moment in it. And beyond that, I can't really tell you that I remember what the hell it was about. It's based on some book, but I think it's probably found its best life in streaming, really.
Wow. Well, there it is. It's a splashy looking Antoine Fuqua film with Wahlberg and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and it kind of got jilted by not ending up in theaters. But, pandemic's going to leave a lot of those for future evaluation. 4K. So got the last 3 4Ks here, all catalog titles, all fascinating classics. It speaks to just how diverse our catalog titles on 4K are starting to be. So it's a real collector's format now. This is telling me a lot. The Untouchables, 1776, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So it's not just for Marvel films and blockbusters. Now we're kind of going deep. The Untouchables, really, I like this film better as time goes by. I thought I had some issues with it the first time. De Niro playing Al Capone, I didn't really get to. The baby cart thing, in homage to Potemkin. Yes, Coster felt a little too stiff to me, but boy, I watch it now and I'm like, it's really nicely shot. Connery really did deserve that Oscar, and it kind of does take the TV show and give it a whole new life. The G-Man thing. I really, and especially in 4K, it really kind of hums.
It's funny at the time, 87 when Bridge and I went to see this movie. I remember for some reason being really hung up on the license that they took with the actual story.
Yeah, oh,
You know,
tons of license.
yeah, making Kevin Costner this sort of gun-toting G-man that Elliot Ness was certainly not. Doing all kinds of wacky stuff with. I think they made. I guess it was Frank Nitti. They made him an albino for some reason, or whatever. I'm like, what? Why is Frank Nitti an albino? What the hell are we doing? And they were doing this all sorts of nutty license that they took. But and in '87, that all just bugged the mess out of me. De Palma always did that. You know, he never really cared as he sort of remade in his sort of Hitchcockian style. That's the other thing that bugged the hell out of me. I'm like, this is plainly a Hitchcock film. You know,
Yeah.
it's like about the Untouchables, but this is like Hitchcock. And fast forward almost 40 years, and I'm like, oh, I was an idiot. This is a perfectly good film, and emotional and enjoyable, and it doesn't make any difference. And I guess was it this that really launched Costner as a movie star? Was it this? What was
No
before
Way
this?
Out. No
No
Way
Way
Out
Out.
is what
No Way Out.
launched him. Yeah, No Way Out is what launched him. But he just kept kind of hitting home runs. I mean, he really did. Field of Dreams, The Untouchables, Dances with Wolves, which of course he directed and won the Oscar for. So, he had a run there, dude. He had a real run. Costner had a run. He's got a run now. I mean, Yellowstone has given him a whole new lease on life.
He's come back, yeah.
So, a really interesting 4K is The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Great John Ford film. Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne. Classic Western, 1962, same year as Lawrence of Arabia. John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart kind of, nearing the ends of their careers here. They are older by all accounts, by what you should be for that particular period. But I'll tell you, this is really is still a great movie, especially in 4K. I think here it's not the audio that you're looking at watching it for. It's the visuals, but it's so well shot. It's such a sharp film. It really ages beautifully. It shows you why they were such great stars. And it's got a great commentary by Peter Bogdanovich that includes some archival recordings with John Ford and Jimmy Stewart. And then a selected scene commentary, which has various archival snippets as well from Stewart and Ford, and none other than Lee Marvin. So, who is also in this. It's easy to forget Lee Marvin's there alongside Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne. So it's a lot of Western power in this thing. But boy, I'll tell you, it's and John Carradine, by the way. These people are no slouches.
Yeah.
This really is one of the all-time great John Ford films. I really like it. Lee Van Cleef too. I mean, keep going down the line of that cast. It's just a great Western and a great cast. And I love this film. I'm thrilled. I never would have expected to see this on 4K, but I'm thrilled that it is.
Fantastic, yeah.
And then lastly on the 4K front, 1776. I did not see that one coming. I just didn't. I mean, it's a beautiful musical. Some people consider it a little bit dated. The songs don't quite resonate like they used to. But boy, it was a big, huge deal on Broadway, and it is an awfully, awfully fun film. Great performances. William Daniels is so good in this thing. Howard Da Silva is just so good. Ken Howard plays Tom Jefferson. It's just a wonderful look at American history, musicalized in this classic Jack Warner production. That just it's absolutely fantastic.
Whenever I'm sorry, whenever you could rent from Rank distributors 16 millimeter films, like you could back in the day in the 70s, right? Whoever my history teacher was at that time rented this film and played it for us as a history lesson. And we had a whole assembly in the gym, and they pulled down the screen and they strung it up, and we watched this film for history class.
It was the Hamilton of its era.
Indeed.
Because people are using Hamilton that way now too. I mean, honestly, because what Miranda did with Hamilton is historically spot on, and that film is being shown now. The Disney Plus stage version of it is being shown in history classes in high schools, so that they kind of inculcate the story and the history. Yeah, very true.
So there it is.
Well, there it is. Anyway, has the director's cut and the extended cut in both 4K and on Blu-ray. All the commentaries are on the Blu-ray disc. And then there's an additional special features Blu-ray that has all the rest of the stuff on it, including the extended Laserdisc version of the film, which is in standard def, but it has this commentary on it with director Peter H. Hunt that is like, I guess, paying homage to the Laserdisc. I don't quite understand the Laserdisc version on here, but nonetheless, it's everything. Let's just put it that way. Sony decided to really knock it out of the park with everything, and this is the 50th anniversary of the film. Beautifully done, lots of fun. Knock yourselves out. We could do some docs. We've got, what else do we have here, Tim? What do you want to dive into? I could knock out some of the. I've got some. We've let accumulate some of the Warner Archive stuff. I'll let
you go ahead and do that, and I'll prep some of the LBGT stuff.
Alrighty,
we can talk after you sort of work your way there. Blythe Danner, by the way, was in that 70s. After she was like 20 or something years old.
It's a wonderful cast. It's a wonderful cast.
She looks just like Gwyneth.
I have to decide. I think I'm going to show that to my daughter at some point soon. We did that. By the way, just kind of a little bit off topic. Speaking of all this stuff, do you know about the Living History project that's done in third grade throughout California?
No, I don't know about that.
This is a whole thing. This is because that's what the picture was that I sent you guys of.
Okay.
Of the girls dressed up. So so there's this thing. It's like in third grade all over California. It's so that kids learn history. You pick a historical figure, and then on the open house night, everybody kind of prepares a little biographical sketch. You try to memorize it if you can, and you dress in costume as your historical figure, and parents walk around the room and push buttons, and the students do their little living history deal. And It was great. Our daughter chose Queen Elizabeth I. My wife went totally off the reservation and dressed her up in clothes and wig and makeup that rivals Kate Blanchett in the damn movie. And you're supposed to do a little button. So I went and got one of those little USB button deals off of Amazon. And instead of putting a little buzzer noise on the Amazon, I loaded the entire Baroque music track from the movie, from the score, so that when people pushed the button, it would like lay down a score track for her little recitation. It was fantastic. We're such geeky parents.
That's so great. That's gonna be
all right.
Much
Warner. Oh, and her best friend did Marie Antoinette, so they were both queens in wigs. It was great.
Yeah, but
Warner Archive Collection has released a ton of great new stuff. Ton of great new stuff. This is all MOD, but it's on Blu-ray, and you got to get it. Blake Edwards has had the most fascinating career. One of the most underrated movies of his career is The Carey Treatment, starring James Coburn and Jennifer O'Neill. Really fascinating 1972 film with Coburn playing this pathologist who has to. I mean, it's kind of like Quincy before Quincy. I think this might even have been the film that sort of inspired Quincy in some respect. But anyway, it's based on a Michael Crichton novel that was originally not written by Michael Crichton. He wrote it under a pseudonym. But it's really cool. It's it's one of those first movies that has a pathologist being the detective and doing the detective work, and it's very smart and it's really well written, and I highly recommend it. It's a good film. The Carey Treatment with James Coburn, one of his most restrained performances, and I just watched him again in Charade the other day. He's so good in that. Spencer Tracy and Ingrid Bergman and Lana Turner in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't need to tell you the story of this thing. You know it. This is the 1941 version. I think in many respects might be the best. Pretty hard to say, all respect to Lon Chaney, but really this just nails the Robert Louis Stevenson source material. It's very sharp. Might be the best film directed by Victor Fleming outside of his famous two that everybody thinks of, which is Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz. Does a great job here. Really great job. And Spencer Tracy's just absolutely terrific. Likewise, the Technicolor Three Musketeers is far and away my favorite. I know a lot of people don't particularly like this one. This is from 1948, and I just love this one. This is the one with Gene Kelly and Van Heflin. and Frank Morgan, Vincent Price, Keenan Wynn, Lana Turner again, June Allison. They blew this thing out on the cast. It is a whole load of fun. Directed by George Sidney. I think it absolutely captures the spirit of the book. Love everything about this. Has some lovely special features. It's got some vintage period stuff, classic cartoon short and radio promo and some stuff just to kind of give you a feel of the night at the movies from the era. Then we also have the Warner Brothers melodrama with Ann Sheridan and Errol Flynn, Edge of Darkness. This is a Lewis Milestone directed war film. Lewis Milestone, of course, did All Quiet on the Western Front, one of the early Best Picture winners. And he kind of he does this is many years later, and he made this in 1943. And he went kind of back to the well, but instead of making an anti-war film, it's 1943, he elected to make one that was a little bit more rah-rah. And it's okay, because it's a very, very sharp film. It's beautifully directed, based on a novel by William Woods. Great performances by Errol Flynn and Ann Sheridan. Great supporting performances from people like Ruth Gordon, Walter Houston, and written by Robert Rossen, who's no slouch in his own right as a great director. This is basically about a fisherman who, in a Norwegian village, who leads the resistance against the Nazis. You don't buy it for a second that it was shot in Norway, because it wasn't. It was shot in the backlot, but it's still really, really good.
Yeah.
Gold Diggers of 1933, absolutely fantastic film that I am very close to for reasons that Tim understands. Directed by Mervyn LeRoy, with a whole host of fantastic Busby Berkeley musical numbers that are just epic and legendary. This is kind of the beginning of Busby Berkeley's work with Warner Brothers. He had been with Samuel Goldwyn before this, and he'd been on Broadway before that. And Ginger Rogers' first big on-screen thing, she sings "We're in the Money" in Pig Latin. Yeah. It's kind of weird and crazy. But
Joan Blondell, oh my God!
Yeah, Joan Blondell,
young Joan Blondell. Because we often we think of Marilyn, we think of people sometimes forget how fine Joan Blondell was.
Joan Blondell was amazing. And, by the way, I always like to point out to people how, all the people, and everyone thinks that they know who all the Hollywood Jews were. Joan Blondell, part Jewish. Fred Astaire, part Jewish. Tim Cockshell, part Jewish.
Part Jewish. Yeah.
So just, you just don't know. Don't think.
Yeah. That's
and also we have Stage Fright, an early Alfred Hitchcock film with Jane Wyman and Marlene Dietrich. Not exactly Hitchcock's best, but he's getting there. He's kind of, it's minor Hitchcock, which is fine. Minor Hitchcock is still better than almost everybody else. Based on a Selwyn Jepson novel. It's got its moments. Jane Wyman is probably not my favorite actress for this part, but because I look at Jane Wyman and I always think, divorced Ronald Reagan.
She's not a Hitchcockian actor.
No,
she's not remotely a Hitchcock. Not as Marlene Dietrich, for that matter. We know he liked the icy cold, beautiful
he liked the ice queens,
and he's roaming around with these two sort of dark and surly broads. He didn't know what to do with them.
I always look at her and I think that she divorced Ronald Reagan because she didn't think he would become anything. It's like, man, was that a bad stock trade? That was not a good one. But anyway, Hitchcock Stage Fright, nice one for the completists. Let's see what else. Ivanhoe, based on the Sir Walter Scott novel, which is kind of a brother or sister story to Robin Hood in many respects. Lovely cast here: George Sanders, Joan Fontaine, Robert Taylor, Elizabeth Taylor. Beautiful Technicolor photography. Pretty faithful to the book. I like this better than Robin Hood, to be honest, for films from that period. Nicely produced by Pandro Berman.
Mr. French is in this movie.
Yeah, I love
Sebastian
Joan Fontaine.
Sebastian Cabot.
Oh, Sebastian Cabot's so good. Yeah. It's not brilliant, but I like it. It's fun. Had a few Academy Award nominations, so it's photography is mostly what you're sticking with there.
Yeah.
Let me pull
and Liz, of course. Liz.
Yeah. We got a couple of Thin Man films. We're completing the Thin Man releases on Blu-ray. They've added Thin Man Goes Home and Song of the Thin Man. Nothing much more I can tell you about this other than the fact that it's Blu-ray and they're great transfers. And if you bought the others, you really, really need to get these. A lot of fun, still an awful lot of fun. You can't go wrong with Nick and Nora. Every word, I hang on every word. They're just wonderful. I don't even care what the plots are anymore. Great special features. They have some shorts and cartoon shorts just to give you that night at the movies feel again.
Also Richard Thorpe.
So good.
Director of Ivanhoe.
And then I'm going to pull out just a few here. Let's see, Fandango. Remember that?
Ooh.
We're talking
yeah.
As long as we're talking about Kevin Costner, we got Fandango and American Flyers.
Yeah.
Two kind of minor Costner efforts, but I think they're still fun.
Well, Fandango is just him and Kevin Reynolds, the old buddies from way back in the day, and they sort of
their love-hate relationship.
Yeah, held up each other's careers there for a while, and then sort of after Waterworld, I guess.
And this was a Spielberg produced thing. Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy produced this for Spielberg and Amblin. It's got Judd Nelson is in this as well. Yeah, it's a one of those fun little buddy road trippy deals, and there were a few of those in the 1980s, and this is one of them. American Flyers, I always thought was an odd movie. Cycling movies are always a little bit odd to me, but I don't know. Now that my wife's really into cycling, and we saw the end of the Tour de France last year, and we follow it every year, so I understand more about cycling. So I can watch Breaking Away and appreciate that a little bit more. And I guess my appreciation for this has increased over time. John Badham directed this, who we interviewed on this show not too long ago, and it's very competently made. I just think it was it's just that I wasn't into the cycling thing, but I am now, so I kind of I don't mind it. I think it kind of works. I think it kind of works more than I did at the time, definitely. Costner stars along with David Grant, Radon Chong, Janice Rule. So it's not bad. Directed by director of photography was Don Peterman, and of course, again, directed by John Badham.
Yeah.
And then the last two here I want to make mention of: Angels with Dirty Faces, Cagney, the great Cagney Bogart, the gangster thing, which is just classic Warner gangster stuff. It really is great. Beautiful, long overdue on Blu-ray. Max Steiner's score is just incomparable. You got to grab that. It's a ton of special features that are really, really beautiful. Leonard Maltin hosting a Warner Night at the Movies, along with a newsreel and a music short and cartoons and the whole thing. There's also a radio production on here with the actors, a commentary by film historian Dana Poland, and a really, really cool featurette. A lot of great stuff there. And then the incomparable original Star is Born with Janet Gaynor and Frederick March, too often overshadowed by subsequent movies, including the most recent one, or the Streisand one, or the Judy Garland one. But the original is still so, so good. They're all good. But David O. Selznick produced, William Wellman, another great early director, directed, and Janet Gaynor and Frederick March just tear your heart out. I mean, it really is beautiful. Just a wonderful, wonderful telling of that story. Also includes a couple of Lux Radio Theater broadcasts and a classic Warner Brothers cartoon, A Star is Hatched, which is really, really fun. Perfect pairing of shorts. So that is on Blu-ray now. Thank goodness. All the others are also on Blu-ray. So now that canon is complete.
Oh, wow.
All right, Tim.
Well, let's knock out a few of the LGBT titles that we have here. And I don't know if you have it there handy, The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. What is that? Is that a Maria Magnetti film? I just love Maria.
That's Strand.
Maria. Is it Strand?
On Blu-ray, long overdue. But yeah, this is kind of a seminal film. This is a really important film. And you cite this all the time about how
I do. It's a reeling with Lauren Holloman and Aaron Nicole Parker and Maggie Moore. And Maria is just going on to have a wonderful career. She's a big-time TV director, going all the way back to the reboot of 90210, and she did a whole bunch of Supergirls and a whole bunch of Motherland, Fort Salem's, and Unreal, and all that stuff. And she made this beautiful, beautiful film way the heck back in 1995 that I had a chance to do some press for and work on. It's just a lovely story of these two teenage girls, both of those actors, Laurel, I should say, and Nicole Ari Parker have gone on to have really great careers. So everything to do with that movie I really love it. And it's just from that moment in the middle 90s when gay cinema was sort of pushing forward in this particular sort of way, right around the beginning of Outfest and a few other things. And Maria and the Gregorakis of the world sort of came through.
It was that queer new wave moment.
Yeah, the
It
queer
was
new
right
wave
there.
moment, amongst
Yeah.
a bunch of other new wave moments, Dogma and this and that and the other thing. Anything interesting on that disc? It's what is it? Is it a D-Ray, a Blu-ray,
It's a
a
Blu-ray.
DVD, a
It
Blu-ray?
is a Blu-ray, and it has a Maria Magenti audio
Yeah,
commentary, and or Magenti, I forget. I don't know how you
I
pronounce it,
say it
but
wrong. I say it wrong.
and a trailer.
Mm.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, recommend that movie all the time. Down in Parents, an Anthony Hickling film, which is a neat movie about a young man roaming around Paris, a young gay man roaming around Paris because he's a filmmaker and he has all sorts of anxiety problems. So takes his camera out and wanders around Paris in the middle of the night, shooting all of these sort of absolutely extraordinary things that you would expect to find going on around and about Paris in the middle of the night. And I say young, he's about 40,
That's
but you know,
young.
yeah,
It's
he's
young.
young enough, young to my mind from my perch of almost 61. It's a drama. I really liked it quite a lot. Don't know if there's anything particularly special on that guy there.
There are interviews, bonus scenes, and a short film.
Don't Look Down is a coming of age story set in Buenos Aires, and it's really just a lovely, lovely movie about this young man whose father dies sort of suddenly, and he's nuts about his father, and he has all of these sort of dreams that in which his father sort of comes to visit him.
French language film.
A French language film set
Yeah.
in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, again, just a pretty movie that I really really loved. Anything interesting on that bad boy?
None whatsoever.
Oh
Nothing.
wow.
No extras. Yeah.
Too bad. Another drama. What's it called there? It's called Mia and Moi here, but I think it might be called Bringing Him Back.
Yes, bringing him back. That is it. The Borgia de la Vega movie.
Yeah, it's the English language title. Anything on that? That was actually lovely too.
Nothing at all. No.
It reminded me of that Almodovar movie, or just Almodovar in general, sort of thing. They lose their mother.
And I did see this one. I saw this. It's beautifully shot, really
Yeah.
nicely shot. Spanish films it's hard. It's hard to make a bad looking film in Spain, to be
Yeah,
honest.
particularly if you set it out in the countryside. Is it Saint Narcissus? Is that the name of the other one?
San Narcisse.
And San
Narcisse. Bruce.
That's a Bruce LaBruce film. You know, hey, Bruce is Bruce. What are you gonna do? Bruce makes big gay films that are gay because they're gay, because they're gay, because they're gay. And to that I say, go Bruce, go. Do your thing, baby.
And he says as much on the commentary too.
Yeah, you know, and I love that. Okay, please. And there's a commentary, so that's fantastic. Yep. And I don't know. Anything else there? I didn't see The Sea.
No. The Sea. We'll just make quick mention of. That's another one from TLA. And it's the story of two men in Chile, and it is in Spanish, and it's it's a threesome thing. I mean, a lot of this is common. There's like another guy, and the relationship comes apart. But it is Chilean, and that always anything from South America always has an additional cultural veneer to it that gives it a little bit something, makes it feel a little bit different from what you would normally get in the U.S.
Can we dip, if we're done with the LGBT films? Can we dip into the docs?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I happened to see that ABBA film, that ABBA doc.
ABBA Forever.
ABBA Forever.
Yeah.
The Winner Takes All, which is just a history of ABBA, flat out, retrospectively, Chris Hunt directing. And it's just fantastic. The only thing better than an ABBA documentary is ABBA.
And I'll tell you, the one regret I have from our recent visit to London is that ABBA's new album. There's a park in London where they have this technology now, which is where you can you use sort of high definition 3D projection. And they use this on a lot of rides at Disneyland and other parks now too, but they use this high definition 3D projection so that it looks like there's actually a three-dimensional person in the space in front of you. It has a kind of a hologram vibe to it.
Oh,
They did motion capture scans of all of them, and then they created one of these 3D things. They made them look like their younger selves from the 1970s.
oh my God.
And there's a little amphitheater in a park in London, and we didn't go because it's too damn far away, and also because it's sold out through October.
Oh my God.
You go there at night. I mean, I can't believe it's sold out through October.
And it has to be at night, of course. Yeah.
At night, it has to be at night, and people sit there and they watch what looks like a live performance of ABBA as they were in the 1970s.
Oh my gosh.
Right there on the stage.
Astounding. But that's the thing that we've been talking about, though, the sort of, coming of that technology. That means that ABBA can be in concert anywhere in the world, all at the same time, at any particular moment from the history of them, forever.
Yeah, and I am not going to pay ABBA prices.
It's just, but I suppose that's true. Hey, I mean, that eventually is going to be true of everything, right? You want to go to a Dave Chappelle concert? Well, of course there's a Dave Chappelle concert. Yep. Where is it? It's everywhere. Yep. It's everywhere, always. And what, do you want Dave Chappelle 1997 or do you want Dave Chappelle 1990? Which Dave do you want? You can have Dave Chappelle from 2001 doing Dave Chappelle jokes from 2022. How about that? Let's do that,
dude. And I just want to make mention, because they're getting all over Ricky Gervais on his new Netflix thing. I mean, it's like I'm reading this stuff. I'm like, do you not understand what Ricky Gervais does?
Have you people not been paying attention?
Have you not been paying attention to what his persona is? If there is something that upsets you, he is going to make fun of it.
Why did you come over here?
I don't understand. But he clearly watched Dave Chappelle's special and said, "Oh no, I can one up that." Oh my gosh. Oh heavens. He talks about like punching handicapped kids. It's like you cannot imagine it. The thing that makes it funny is that he goes there. He just goes there, and
what it is that he knows that there are going to be people who do not have the wherewithal to understand what's actually going on.
Took the bait. They're helping promote it
in this performance.
It's like promotion.
It's like you're really not paying attention to people.
Free marketing.
So anyway, so that's
another good doc. I want to make a quick mention of, as long as we're in the docs. The Monopoly of Violence by David Dufresne. This is. I
thought that was. Chris, what's his name, right? The director of that, or am I thinking of a different one?
You might be. That I think it's different. This is David Dufresne is the filmmaker. No, it's really interesting. It's a look at protests around the world, and protests that aren't just protests, but they've gone violent. And a lot of this is obviously, something to do with the pandemic and whatnot, but there is something else that's going on. And the way that governments are responding to this, which in some cases, exacerbates the violence. So it's a very interesting French documentary made in 2020. And it doesn't come to it asks a lot of very difficult questions of ordinary people, and it doesn't come to a lot of easy answers, but it certainly suggests some very difficult questions, and I think it's really important to see. So the Monopoly of Violence, really, if this kind of stuff concerns you socially, politically, for ethically, whatever reason, really good doc to watch, because it's not evangelizing a point of view. It's looking for resolution, which I think is very, very brave.
Heavy. What else what is the AHA movie, the great song, of course, we know AHA the movie. It's just, that band, that great song, that groundbreaking video. What do we got?
Not another hit. Yeah. It was one and done. No, it was the Norwegian trio who known as AHA, who were huge in the 80s. This is a Blu-ray from Lightyear, and it was at the Tribeca Film Festival just last year. And it's just a 35 years later revisitation of that moment and what made it such lightning in a bottle. And it covers a 4-year period. It looks into their entire career. It looks at the music industry. It really tries to get under the surface, and for the most part, I think it does it. It really it gets into kind of some ugly areas. I mean, it's a wonderful story, but there are the dark edges of the music business and certainly the entertainment business, which it also gets into. So pretty interesting.
Balanchine's classroom was just extraordinary, particularly for those of you who, like me, are love ballet, particularly classical ballet. All of those great figures from the past. Now I'm thinking about all the great Russians who left. Nureyev, all of the great Russians. And this is Balanchine's classroom, and it's really sort of wonderful look from that period, literally in his sort of New York classroom, and all the dancers that worked with him, the great. It's just really great, and I don't know. It just got me thinking about all of that stuff.
It is a beautiful film. Connie Hulkman, who directed it, is a superbly talented documentarian, and it's very slick. It's very professional, beautifully paced. Really hits all the beats, just absolutely as it should. So, there's so many good documentarians out there, but Connie Hulkman, I'm looking forward to seeing more of her stuff. It's really engaging. Tim, we got Trekkies on Blu-ray.
Yeah. That Rogers film, right? With Roger Nygaard, the director.
Yep.
With Denise Crosby, who of course played Tasha Yar in the early seasons of Star Trek: Next Generation. Sort of at the center of all of this. It's just, hey, look. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm mistaken. I have over the many decades maintained my sort of tricky ness with respect to the many derivations of Star Trek. I really have no issue with any of them. Some of them are far and away, generally speaking, better than others. But in the way that I hold the entire Star Trek universe in my mind, I really just view them all as part and parcel of this continuing story. The one thing that I really enjoy the most or about the Star Trek universe is that it really does, and all of the filmmakers and showrunners who've come to these series have really tried to maintain a measure of consistency. Even into these new things, we got Picard and we got they try to make it all make sense and connect, and only very seldom sort of fail at that. And when they do, they simply blame it on a different universe. It's like, oh, well, that happened in that universe, or whatever they call it. But other than that, they really do that. And this, I always liked this movie. I always thought this movie was a lot of fun. This movie is 25 years old now, and therefore does not consider any of the since then moments of Star. It's ready for a sequel.
I saw this film originally. I took it personally. I said, you're making fun of me in my generation because I'm one of those nerds. And I look at it now and I feel much more comfortable about it. It's like warm milk.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old when my friend Adam and I went to SpaceCon 4 at the LA Convention Center. His dad took us and it was great. DeForest Kelley was there. He was drunk. William Shatner went out and people went crazy, and we were sitting in like the second row. We're like, "Whoa, it's Shatner! He's right in front of us!" And he came out and people were screaming, and Shatner was just it was like catnip to that man's ego. You could see it. Oh my gosh, he was just sucking it up like a body snatcher right there. And finally, he said people wouldn't stop shutting up. People dressed like Klingons carrying around tricorders. I mean, it was crazy. It was 1970s, and finally he goes, "Please, quiet. The captain says quiet." Everybody shut up. Brilliant.
And only 3 years later, I think it was 2000, after this film.
Yeah.
Galaxy Quest. If I'm not mistaken,
you're right.
Was that 2000?
Right.
That was 2000, right?
It was something like that. Original script was written by my friend Dave Howard, who we should have on the show at some point, because
we do.
I will never forget being at a party when I met Dave Howard, and he pitched me, and he said, "Yeah, I got this script. It's like a Star Trek thing, and it was called Captain Starshine at the time. And he goes, yeah, it's like a Kirk guy and these aliens. He's pitching it to me. I'm like, that sounds really cool. I can't believe you can't get any traction on that. Like 5 years later, boom, there's the movie.
Only 5 years later, folks.
It was
Hollywood,
about 5 or 6. Yeah.
Hollywood, 1999 is Galaxy Quest. So only 2 years later.
Yeah.
They did that movie. Yeah, well, fantastic.
Tim, are you familiar with Jay Bennett?
Jay Bennett,
legendary musician and recording studio savant,
member
of Wilco. Wilco.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was not familiar, but this is not a unimportant documentary. It's called "Where Are You, Jay Bennett," and it goes into this guy who was a member of Wilco, and he was basically an incredible musician, an incredible recording artist. Influenced a lot of people, and then he died at 45. And I'm totally unfamiliar with his story, but I like stories like this because I just didn't realize how important this guy was to the music industry. So it's nice to discover those hidden stories. That is a Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Any other docs that you're keen on before we start to wrap this out?
Let me see what might be here that's interesting. Oh, royalty free, the music of Kevin MacLeod. Since we're talking about how this guy Kevin MacLeod became this worldwide most heard. You've listened to him, even though don't know that you've listened to him. Because of all of the music that he does and licenses and puts out into the world. And it's a really, really sort of interesting piece. It's much about the industry as it is about him. There are all kinds of people who make all kinds of music that you hear all the time and who make a lot of money from that music. And you never know their names. It's really sort of interesting film about that and this guy.
And as long as we're on music, I do want to put a shout out to How They Got Over, which is the story of gospel quartets and the connection that has to the beginnings of rock and roll. And this is again a story I was not familiar with. It's really interesting. I knew nothing about gospel quartets. I didn't know there was such a thing as a gospel quartet.
Oh, when I was a kid and still going to the Southern Baptist churches that I went to in the late 60s, early 70s, gospel quartets was still quite a thing. Sister Rosetta Tharpe was still quite a Sister Rosetta, black woman. And people forget that Sister Rosetta was sort of drummed out of the Southern Baptist Church because of playing that guitar and sort of blending that rock and roll.
That's what this is all about. It's really, really interesting. It's a connection that I had never made, which takes gospel and rock and roll, and it puts the two together in this moment through this stuff. A lot of performance stuff in here, which is fascinating. I mean, they've got Sister Rosetta Tharpe in here. They got the Blind Boys of Alabama, the Davis Sisters, the Soul Stirrers. I mean, a lot of these acts that I just had never heard of. It's a great little it does what great historical docs do, which is it finds something that's forgotten in history, which is well documented. We don't need to go and invent recreations. The material's all there. It's just you had to go get it. You got to put it together and give it a context. And it's a wonderful doc by Robert Clem. How They Got Over, Gospel Quartets and the Road to Rock and Roll. Really, really good. Also had a great run with some festivals. Well, let's start to kind of wrap up here. We didn't get to our TV, but I do want to make. Well, you know what? We should talk about just for a real quick second. The Criterion and Arrow stuff. A few new movies.
Oh yeah,
there are some new movies that we should probably mention. Licorice Pizza. We got to talk about Licorice Pizza.
We got to talk about that under the new movies, and under the Criterion. I see Mississippi Masala. Excuse me, which I would love to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, talk about Mississippi Masala straight up. Let's hit that one first.
Well, so that's a movie. Missing to get back on my mic here. That's a movie, Mississippi Masala. That I just really 1991 film, and in Denzel Washington, it's me or now. Denzel Washington and Sacharia Chowdhury in this beautiful movie that somehow blends these cultures. It's about an ethnic Indian family who had to leave Uganda, right? Not India, but Uganda in
Mhm.
1972. And they end up in Mississippi years later, where this young woman comes into contact with Denzel Washington, playing one of the few sort of blue collar characters that Denzel Washington ever played. He really plays in movies. And he falls, and they fall in love, and how all of these different cultural dynamics and conflicts sort of come to bear. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie.
It is a great film. I interviewed Mira Nair at the time for
Yeah.
this, and I have a wonderful. I don't know if she would even know my name, but every time I ever interviewed her again, I've done about 3 times. She somehow seems to know me, Mr. Wade. I'm Mr. Wade with that very elegant Indian accent of hers, and she's just delightful. She lives in Uganda. People should know, so that's
Mm,
why Mira Nair has such a feel for Ugandan life, for all the communities that live there, including the Indian community, which has very deep roots there. And she also did Queen of Katwe, which I
yeah.
think is the most underrated film, which is all about Ugandan school kids, the caste system there, learning to play chess, the street kids, and then the more prep school kids. I mean, Uganda is a fascinating country, and it's a beautiful
Yeah.
country, and Mira
Yeah. And,
Nair really loves it.
oh, well,
So
you have to mention the one, Salam Bombay, the film
Salam
before
Bombay.
Mississippi Masala. So really, yeah, a great
Well,
career there.
this is a wonderful Blu-ray. It's got an audio commentary with Mira Nair, who is just a delight. I mean, I hear that commentary and I remember our interviews, and she's just so much fun. Great new interviews, and it's a beautiful, beautiful restoration of the film. It's a film well worth rediscovering. My gosh, Denzel is just magnificent in that thing. You
Yeah.
forget I look at him now and I just know him now, but I forget how young he was and how strapping he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Few other criterions here. We've got The Funeral by Juzo Itami. We're finally
Mm,
getting the Juzo Itami films that have been missing on Blu-ray for so long. This is from 1984. Itami, of course, just has a wonderful, wicked sense of humor and a very unique style. The Funeral, one of his more personal films. Loads of extras here, everything that you would expect. It's the trailers and a little short program. It's wonderful.
Oh, I
Chan
see. I see. Chan is missing.
Chan is missing. That's what I
Oh
want to get
man,
to.
I haven't seen that
Um,
movie in so long.
I know, the movie that put Wayne Wang on the map.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful movie from 1982. One of the first great independent films from the 1980s.
Oh man, that
Uh,
movie's 40 years old. Oh, for God's
Dude,
sake.
I know, it's killing me. But there's a terrific bunch of extras on here too, including a conversation between Wayne Wang and a film critic, Hua Su, and Ang Lee. So the fact that Ang Lee and Wayne Wang kind of get to have a conversation is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty great. And Chan is missing. It's like it's many genres all packed into one. It's takes place in Chinatown, San Francisco. It's kind of a thriller. It's kind of a whodunit. It's kind of a drama. It's kind of a coming of age film, and it's all made for like $1.50. And Wayne Wang just kind of
Yeah.
showed everybody a whole new way of being indie at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Alain Delon and Mr. Klein, another Joseph Losey
Oh yeah.
movie. Great Joseph Losey movie, a late Joseph Losey movie from 1976.
Yeah. Alain Delon.
Joseph Losey made movies in German, and then he made movies in French. He was kind of the ultimate expat, but what a really, really fascinating film
Oh yeah.
from his long, extended European period. It's a mystery, and it's a really interesting mystery, and it's kind of a Hitchcockian mystery. Hitchcock made thrillers, not mysteries, but the fact that it's about a wrong guy,
Yeah.
it's like The Man Who Knew Too Much or North by Northwest. It's one of those things which Hitchcock did particularly well. So he takes that, he wraps it up in a mystery, gives it his own Losey spin, puts Alain Delon in the middle of it, one of the all-time great French actors,
Oh yeah.
and you've
Jean
got this
Moreau.
classic film, Mr. Klein. Yeah, it's really, really good. Great packaging and artwork too. Let's see. Tim, let's hit these new movies real quickly. Before we talk about Licorice Pizza, let me talk about just for a second a Shudder movie called The Boy
Okay.
Behind the Door.
Oh
Did you
yeah.
see The Boy Behind the Door?
Yeah, I did see that one. Uh,
It ain't bad actually.
Interesting.
Most of the Shutter stuff, I tend to be kind of like, oh, it's kind of the same old thing again. But I like the fact that this goes into kind of a Stranger Things place, and Stranger Things is about to drop soon, as we mentioned. It which is the impact of fear on young kids, and that could be very exploitative, or it could be very meaningful and prescient. And I think they do a good job of the latter here.
Mm,
And so I like the kids in this thing. I think the way that it treats fear and childhood is not exploitative. It's very effective in a genre way, but I really think it's worth checking out. The Boy Behind the Door, good movie to
mm.
check out. A Shudder original. Licorice Pizza.
Yeah. It didn't do as well at the actual Academy Awards as we might have been thought, earlier in the awards season. But plenty of nominations. The film itself very well reviewed, much liked by many, including myself. I really like Licorice Pizza. The way I talk about it, you think I didn't like it. I do like it.
I
But
love it.
then again, I spent the last 30 plus years here, and I watched that film, and I get all the jokes and all the inside references, and I just love it. I love the way the film flows too. There's plenty to
Yeah,
love about the film, whether you know the material or not. But I do hold to this notion that I have regarding films like Licorice Pizza, but it in particular, that if you're literally not from here, if you haven't spent either a lifetime like you or a good chunk of your life like me here, even if you like this film, you're missing half of it.
yeah, I agree. And I also think it is a little deficient in the extras department. I have a feeling there's a Criterion in the offing, because I wanted a P.T. Anderson commentary. I didn't get one.
Oh, no
But
commentary.
no commentary. But there are camera tests and behind the scenes stuff, and commercial for Fat Bernie's. I mean, there's stuff in it that's good, but not enough. I feel like there's another shoe to drop. So
Man.
I feel like he's holding a lot of stuff back for that eventual Criterion or whatever it might be. How'd you feel about Spencer with Kristen Stewart?
Loved her performance very much. I thought she was great at it. Understood completely why she got that nomination. It's not if you compare it to say Jackie, Pablo Larraín's other
Yeah.
sort of biopic film. I prefer Jackie to this. But the performance in this I thought was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is an amazing performance. The film left me a little bit cold, but Jackie did too, kind of. Maybe I'm not just a Pablo Larraín fan, but
Mm,
it is very nicely made. It's well made, all my reservations notwithstanding, and it is on Blu-ray with a featurette, but no commentary.
mm,
Channing Tatum in Dog. I don't know. I don't get this movie. Excuse me. He directed it. They marketed it like a comedy. It ain't no comedy.
mm.
It's a road trip. A guy and his dog. It's I mean, I don't, I, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what he was going for with it. He wants it to be funny. He wants it to be meaningful, and I'm afraid it winds up being neither. But I do say this. I think Channing is not an untalented filmmaker. I just don't think this was the movie for it to click on.
Yeah, yeah. He
Um,
sort of co-directing with another guy there too. But yeah, anyway, yeah. Dog.
and before we wrap out, I want to wrap out with some of these Arrow titles. But 9 Days. Did you see 9 Days?
Which one is this? I
Nine
may not
Days,
have.
the written and directed by Edson Oda, really interesting movie that
Oh,
kind
I
of,
did see that. I remember that.
yeah,
Yeah, Winston Duke and everybody in that movie.
yeah, boy, this
Yeah,
is so
Zazie
interesting.
Beats. Yeah.
It's this movie about a way station, which is kind of like a low tech house in a desert somewhere with lots of TVs, tube televisions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for when people die. And they
Yeah.
go and they wind up in this low tech shack to kind of reconcile themselves to their lives. And Winston Duke is the guy that runs the place, and various people come through. And I won't tell you anything about it, but it's all very very metaphorical and allegorical, and really asks some pretty big, heady questions and goes to a totally unexpected place. And I am really looking forward to see what Edson Oda does next, because this is a bold movie, and the fact that it got financed in the first place is a bit of a triumph.
Mm.
So really interesting movie.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, we might have been on Film Week together the week that that movie came
Oh,
out.
maybe,
So it's
maybe.
very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Good movie.
So, real quickly, Arrow's got a bunch of stuff.
I see
You've
one
got
on Barksler. What about the if I'm not mistaken, you're on that, right?
which one?
One on Boxer, or is that Masters of the Flying
Oh, no, no,
Guillotine that
no!
you're
The Master of the Flying Guillotine. Yeah,
okay, okay.
which I mean, he plays a one-armed boxer in Master of the Flying Guillotine, based on this character, Jimmy
Yeah.
Wang Yu, who recently left us.
Yeah.
And also appeared in a movie called Knight Errant, which was previously on DVD. Tim and I did the commentary for that, if you can still find it. He played a lot of one-armed swordsman, one-armed boxer, a lot of this stuff, and the Raymond Chow cast him in 1970 as the one-armed boxer, based on his one-armed swordsman stuff, and from there he jumped into the Master of the Flying Guillotine, and this is one of his one-armed roles, and he's great in it. He's a legendary figure in martial arts cinema. Has a great commentary by Frank Zhang from the New York Asian Film Festival, and all kinds of other fun extras on this. Arrow just pulled out all the stops to really give a lot of fan service with this, and you will not be disappointed. A few other martial arts titles from Arrow include the 8-Diagram Pole Fighter with Gordon Liu, and Alexander Fouchung by Lau Kar-leung. Lau Kar-leung, the legendary director who co-directed Jackie Chan's Drunken Master 2, and he fought with Jackie Chan underneath the train in that movie. And behind the scenes, they fought as well, because two big egos. But 8-Diagram Pole Fighter is unbelievable. It's phenomenal. Forget about the plot. It's phenomenal. The fighting is just through the roof. It's a great, great Shaw Brothers epic. And then there is King Hu's Come Drink With Me, which is, King Hu, Taiwanese, more artful films, but also an absolute legendary film of the period. Come Drink With Me is just superb, also from the Shaw Brothers library, and kind of the original great wuxia art film. Has a lot of John Ford influences in it, and has this tremendous documentary on here, Cinema Hong Kong, Sword Fighting, which is all about the wuxia genre and everything that's kind of built it into this cinematic icon that it is. Really tremendous. Wonderful, wonderful interviews in here, including Sammo Hung and David Chang and Lau Kar-leung and Gordon Liu. It's pretty great. Cheng Pei Pei.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. If you're a fan of this stuff like I am, boy.
A very, very young Jackie Chan may or may not be.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing about that.
Don't look too hard. Don't look too hard.
Pei says it's not him.
Yeah. Don't look too hard.
I'm gonna go with what she says.
And then we got a couple of I'm gonna make a rhyme here. We got RoboCop and RoboCops.
Yeah.
RoboCop in 4K is fantastic. It includes the director's cut and the theatrical cut, so you get them both in 4K. It's in a steelbook, and I would watch the director's cut because it includes stuff that's really funny and never should have been rated NC-17 to begin with.
Yeah.
And all the extras that have been previously released for that, plus Rogue Cops and Racketeers, 2 crime thrillers by Enzo Castellari, The Big Racket and The Heroin Busters. I am not a huge fan of these Italian crime films from this period, but I know a lot of people are, and they're intense. It's kind of like giallo for crime, but it's 1970s. We talked about 1970s European films earlier. Kind of the same thing here, made in 1976 and 77. It's just Italian cop movies, but they restored them beautifully. There's a lot of great extras on here, which are all just sort of lavishing praise on this genre. They got a new interview with Castellari, who clearly thinks that he's still really amazing, and that is entertaining in and of itself. So comes a little booklet too. Nice double feature for the Castellari fans.
Fantastic.
I think that's it, Tim.
Is that it? Is that the show?
That's the show. So welcome back, and looks like we're kind of getting back to out of this pandemic stuff. Our school district is suspending a lot of the mandatory testing for older students and staff members. So I take that as a harbinger that things may change for everybody else pretty soon.
Good. Outstanding.
Right.
So, Top Gun. Probably going to be cleaning up at the box office for the what next 2-3 weeks. Sure. I give it that.
Yeah.
And everything will sort of like stay out of the way. Maybe by the time we get to the middle in the June, something like that, there'll be room for another movie.
And by the time people listen to this, boy, I hope they will have watched the first half of this season of Stranger Things 4, because Sherman's going to kill it.
Oh, Sherman, yeah. You see all those pictures of him at the premiere?
I did, wearing a suit that nobody has any business looking that good in.
That was nuts. That's great.
Cow.
Yeah, look for Fantastic. Our buddy Sherman Augustus playing Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan. It's a hell of a thing.
It's all good.
All right.
See you next time, everybody.